In fact, oh, it says recording in progress. Got it. All right. So proper attitude. When I hear that, and I was asked to speak on that, and I reflected on proper attitude, I thought, what the hell is proper attitude anyway? And who decided on this? And it's like, well, I did. Oh, okay. Well, so typically, then I ramble off in my mind into what does that mean? And what do I really think about that? And then who really cares? Because I got an attitude. And so as I pray and meditate and reflect and ask for guidance, I go, oh, proper attitude, not my attitude necessarily, certainly not the attitude I came in here with. But anyway, I want to thank you all for asking me to be here. I want to thank Allie for reaching out, and Kurt for pimping me out here, and everybody. And hi, Teresa. And it's nice to see some friendly and maybe not so friendly faces. I've heard that there are a lot of people that have been speaking at this meeting, and a friend of mine that I sponsor in another country says, oh, there's some heavy hitters there. Well, I'm bringing the bar down. I'm bringing the bar way down. I'm the interim speaker. I'm the guy right at intermission, that everybody fumbles and wanders around and goes, hey man, can I pick my nose here or what? Anyway, my sobriety date is May 5th, 1980. I was given that date. I didn't earn it. I was given that date. And I have a sponsor, and I'm mostly sponsorable. I also sponsor a bunch of guys that aren't necessarily sponsorable because they don't have the right attitude. I'm telling you, they don't have the right attitude. So when I came, we read that the spiritual experience appendix, and that's the flag that I came in here. That was my attitude when I came in. Intolerance and belligerent denial. See, I want to half hear something, and then I want to believe it, what I want to believe, build a case, and then defend it. And you can prove to me it's wrong. I don't care. I'm defending it anyway. I'm going to the death. Usually my death, because you all get sick of me and run away. And that's kind of the story of my alcoholism. Bill Wilson says, AA is only operating a spiritual kindergarten. Well, for me, being only in spiritual preschool, that sounds like a step up. So I'm pretty excited to be invited to spiritual kindergarten. And this step 11 stuff, that's how I live today. But it's part of the qualifying of how I get to be here to speak. I'm going to droll on for a few minutes about some old history. Growing up in the life that I shared with my family was a very painful experience. My mom was an alcoholic and an addict. My dad was a hard drinker by definition in the big book. And my sister was an up and coming addict and alcoholic. And by the way, both my mother and my sister died from this disease. So I come from that kind of family. I come from that kind of stock. I come from a whole lot of abuse. My dad was very abusive. I spent time in different doctors and hospitals and different things for the abuse. None of that had anything to do with my alcoholism. None of it did. But it paints a little bit of a picture. When I was 11, I was in regular trouble because I always felt like I wasn't getting any positive attention at home. So being a little kid, moving around from place to place, because my dad was always hiding out from creditors. He was doing his own little geographics. We were ordered, don't answer the phone, because it was, community creditor, some other creditor, somebody was looking for us. And back then, that's how you reached out, was at dinner time by the phone. So we were all trained well. Lie, don't answer. And so I was in trouble on a regular basis because when I went to school, I would seek attention. And the only way I got it was to become a delinquent. So I would see that these guys, I always felt like I was left out. And I would see that the guys and gals over there, wherever over there was, did not include me. They were all having fun and they were all smiling and laughing and being together. I was standing there like some schmuck all alone everywhere I went. So when I started like throwing rocks through windshields or through the principal's office window, I got immediate positive attention from all the hoodlums that I was seeking attention from. And it didn't take too long where, they go, that Donaldson kid is goofier than hell, but he's fun. And so, all right, I'll take what I could get. So I started to get this attention. I started to get in trouble. And by the time I'm 11 years old, I'm tethered to my dad. He won't let me out of his sight because every time I get loose, I get in trouble. And these kids used to come over to my house that were older than me and always in trouble. And my mom would corner them while she's drinking, right? She'd corner them and go, all right, what are you going to do with my son? And she'd warn me about them. She'd say, I don't think you should be hanging out with them. And it wasn't but a year later and she's warning them to stay away from me, So things just kind of shift around, Even my mama don't love me, right? So I get in trouble over and over and over. And finally, my dad's having a party with all his construction worker buddies, and they're all drinking like crazy, breaking in his new bar that he built in the Midwestern basement. And so I'm getting drinks for people. And of course, I'm picking up the empties and I'm taking a swig here and there when nobody's looking, because I always knew alcohol was supposed to be fun. And damn it, I wanted fun because I wasn't having much. So long story shorter, as many of you know, I had a few drinks and I got transformed and I got a new attitude. Once I got transformed, I got this new attitude. And like in the doctor's opinion, it makes it very simple. Why do we drink? We like the effect produced. That's it. We can paint storylines around that for days and months and years, but that's the simple truth. And once I put that alcohol in my body, my shoulders fell down. I wasn't afraid. See, and I didn't even know how afraid I was. If you would have asked me when I was, and then, I was put on probation by the time I was 11. I had a probation officer. I was in all kinds of trouble because every time I would drink, I would get in trouble. I had a friend of mine who had an older brother. And because I'm always in trouble at school for drinking, because now I'm drinking at school. I'm drinking before school, drinking at school. I'm drinking whenever I can get away with it because I'm 11 years old. I don't have permanent access, but every time I get it, I'm drinking it. And it's kind of like if you give me a bottle, it's my duty to finish it, whether you stay or not. It's my duty. And so I would finish them. And this friend of mine's older brother came up to me one day. He goes, boy, you're an idiot. And, my best 11, 12-year-old voice going, yeah, what do you mean by that? And he says, every time you drink, you stink. Every time you drink, you fall down, you bounce off walls, you get in trouble. He says, every adult in your life, you walk in, they give you the sniff test because they don't know if they're dealing with some mope, quiet boy who's not been drinking, who's waiting to explode and maybe blow up and hurt someone, or someone who's going to argue over everything and anything, meaning I've been drinking. So they don't know what they're up against. So they're all giving me the sniff test. I walk in, my relatives are all, hi, Bill. I walk into my PO, hello, et cetera, et cetera. So this guy walks up and he says, everybody knows you're drinking because you stink. And he reaches in his shirt pocket and he pulls out some pills. And he says, if you take these, you'll get whacked out and you won't get in trouble. And I'm thinking, oh yeah, and he's got his hand out and I snatch these pills out of his hand and I throw them down my throat. He's got 4 of them and I throw all 4 of them down my throat. And I watch him go, not all of them. About 40 minutes later, I'm laying on my back like a turtle. I can't get up. They were, what a lot of us in the old days used to call soapers or quaaludes, that's what they were. And I took 4 of them and I'm only, 100 pounds. It just whacked me out. And as I'm laying on the floor, I'm thinking, I can't move. The conscious thought came across my mind. I don't know how this is any better. I can't move. Blackout. Okay. So I lived a good share of my life in blackouts. In fact, a good share of this story I'm probably telling tonight is coming from hearsay. So this attitude, right? I started to get this attitude that nobody cared, nobody liked me unless I was providing either juvenile delinquency entertainment or breaking into houses, stealing booze, and providing it at the local, junior high hangout. Every school's got one. And I would go to the junior high hill with a couple of bottles of booze that I stole, and I'm the hero, right? And like Bill Wilson, not only did I want attention, I wanted applause. So all of a sudden now I'm the big shot. Every time I show up with booze, I'm the big shot. The problem is now I've discovered this other substance also. And the same guy comes up to me a few days later and he says, if you take these little white pills, you can drink more. I said, well, I'm all about that. I want to drink more. So I know this is Alcoholics Anonymous, and I am an alcoholic. I have alcoholism. And when I take drugs, I take them alcoholically. So there's that. So off to that dance I go. I start getting in more and more and more trouble. More and more alcohol is required. I'm getting alcohol poisoning because now I'm taking speed and drinking, and I'm drinking too much, and I'm ending up at the hospital. Imagine this, right? And I think my alcoholic life is the normal one. I think everything is just normal. Everybody's picking on me. My PO is picking on me, the treatment centers. Now I'm 12 years old and I'm locked up in a treatment center. It's a hospital, kind of a treatment center for adolescents. And within 3 days, I got this all scoped out. I got the maid's keys, and I'm letting myself go in and out when nobody's looking. And I got friends of mine, this is back when you had a payphone where you like put a dime in, and I'd steal dimes that I could find laying around, and I'd open the door, let myself out, make a phone call, let myself back in. A little while later, I'd let myself back out and go pick up the bag that was on by the garbage cans. So I'm in treatment, juvie treatment, and I'm drinking. So now I get caught. They throw me out. My dad's insurance won't pay. He's really pissed off. He beats the crap out of me, and I end up in the hospital again. Okay, another day. And so that's the way this rolls. It's just another day. It's just another day. And I think it's normal. I believe it's normal. I had this attitude, talking about attitudes, of shoulds. Nobody should get in my way. The world should be a better place for a guy like me. School shouldn't be so hard on a guy like me. I had all these shoulds that everyone else and everything else should apply to. My attitude was, you all ain't doing your part, so screw you. What I didn't understand was, every time I said screw you and I went out and got drunk or ingested some other party favors, that I was paying a price. So after multiple treatment centers to avoid multiple jail stints, and I sponsor a lot of guys, and I'm very lucky with that. And one of the things that we talk about is the difference between compliance and surrender. If you would have asked me about the third or fourth time I was in treatment, if I had surrendered, I would have said, oh yes, I've seen the error of my ways, Your Honor. I mean, I've seen the error, and I'm not going to repeat that anymore. I now know that you all have the answer, and I'm going to do what you want. About my 6th or 7th treatment, I'm in treatment to avoid, awaiting sentencing, because along the way, this is a progressive illness, and I have a progressive, ill-mannered attitude. And so every time I think I deserve something that the world isn't giving me, I think, well, you know what, I'm just taking it. Well, that attitude puts you up before the judge, and eventually I get sentenced to 15 years in the state prison. And I'm out on pre-sentence investigation or pre-sentence stuff. And I have been taking every kind of drug and drinking everything there is for years. And last time I had been in treatment was like a year and a half before that. So the judge said, we got to send this guy to detox. And I had a lawyer that I had picked up as a public defender many years previous. And when this public defender had defended me, he got into my psyche, as well as he's the only phone number that I knew, because everybody else had changed their numbers and not given them to me. And that's the other thing I wanted to mention here was that emptiness. I can talk about the deeds and the nasty things and the overdoses and being DOA and toe tagged and all that nasty stuff that has happened to me. But one of the biggest things, a guy early on in this AA work, he said, what's the worst thing you ever did? Boy, and I'm racking my mind and I'm going, is it the armed robberies? Is it the assaults? Is it the attempted murders? I mean, is it, all this stuff? And he just shook his head and he looked at me and said, no, worst thing you ever did was continually break the hearts of people who loved you. And as screwed up as I was, that was a zinger. Now, I wasn't ready to get sober, but it was one of those zingers. And one of those 3 o'clock in the morning, when I roll around in my rack or my bed or whoever I got to take care of me for a while, I'd be rolling around going, I can't sleep. What is wrong with me? And that was the thing. I couldn't get the answer to what was wrong with me. People would tell me what was wrong with me. Well, basically it started with you're an a-hole, and then they would give me a litany of other things that they had on their list. But the real problem was I had alcoholism and I didn't know the answer. So I get remanded to this treatment center to await sentencing. This lawyer comes through one more time, and I don't know that he has graduated from, a public defender to a real lawyer with a shingle. I mean, what do I know about anybody else? I don't care about anybody else. I'm selfish and self-centered. All I know is I call this number, he comes. Call the number. He came. He talks the judge into one more deal. One more time. This judge says, I don't know. And he looks at me prior to this and he says, Mr. Donaldson, I don't know why I'm even entertaining the idea of you not going to prison. But he said, here's the thing. If you go to treatment, do what they tell you, come out of here and come back, I'll tell you what my decision will be. So I go into this 4-week treatment center and I'm doing my best, man. I am doing my best. I'm telling them what they want to hear. I'm telling everybody else what they ought to be doing in arts and crafts. And this must have been a thing back in the 70s because I've since heard this from other stories from other people around the world. They had me make and wear a sign that said, I'm not a counselor. Apparently there was some confusion. So they were on to me and people like me. So I being a really good student in a 4-week treatment center, I got out 8 weeks later to go to go before the judge. And the judge says, I see you've completed treatment. You're detox now. You're not a threat to our medical community within the prison system. And I'm thinking, uh-oh. And he says, but one more time, I don't know why I'm doing it. There's this halfway house for criminals. And the qualifications to get in this halfway house is you had to have greater than 10 years hanging over your head. And you had to have been to treatment multiple times where apparently it didn't stick. So I fit the criteria. He says, I'm going to let you go for the weekend with your lawyer. He's going to sign you out. He's going to drop you off over there. And I get over there and I walk, and I'm sitting in the back seat of my lawyer's car when he's driving me over there thinking, I won. I got this thing. Followed up immediately by this sense of fear thinking, God, maybe I don't, right? Maybe I don't. So I get to this place. It's a locked up facility. I get in, I get checked in. They tell me where my bunk is and my stuff is. 2 o'clock in the morning. Now I'm done pretty much shaking and baking from 2 months of detox and treatment, but I can't sleep. I'm nervous as a cat on a hot tin roof, right? And I'm looking for the angle. Who's in charge? What game do we play? What do I got to do? Who do I got to kiss up to? Who do I got to work trades out with? The games. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. This buzzer goes off. It's horrendous. It's so loud, and everybody jumps up out of their racks, and they get single file like little ducklings, and they're walking down the hall to this big room, and I'm going, what? They go, shh, shh, we'll all get in trouble if you talk. Don't talk. All right. So I walk into this big room, and see, I'm figuring I know these games. I can play these games. I got them all fooled. I'll just skate through this. It's better than 15 years. one of the guys in the main room, he's cuffed, and the cops are pushing his head, holding the cuffs, pushing him down the stairway out the door. And I'm thinking, uh-oh, what the hell's this? So then this other guy is standing in the corner, he's cuffed, he's got his head in the corner, and he turns his head and looks out at us, and he's bleeding. So I poke the guy next to me, I go, what happened here? He goes, well, they got in a fight. What? Over what? Socks in the dryer. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I mean, you know, socks in a dryer, they got in a fight. And it proved to me right then and there that they weren't kidding. This was a zero tolerance place. These guys, one infraction, out they went. And I never saw them again because they had greater than 10 years hanging over them, and they went. So it got to the seriousness of it all started to hit me. My attitude started to change. And I went, uh-oh. So now it's Sunday rolls around. My lawyer pulls up in his car. I get in the back seat of his car, and he adjusts the rear view mirror, and he's looking at me, and he goes, so what's it going to be, sport? Boy, I hated when people call me sport like that. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, here's what you're up against. I can take you from here to the courthouse where they will lock you up and you will await sentencing and you will get your 15 years. And the judge is pissed off at you. He's going to give you 3 5s stacked up. So you don't get much good time. And I'm going, this is back when you get good time. And I went, ugh. And he says, or you can go back in there. You're going to be locked up in there and do what they say for 6 months. Then you're going to have a year of aftercare in there. And along the way, you're going to have 7 years of intensified probation, where you're going to have to tell them your every move at every day of every hour. And I went, oh. And I'm sitting in the back seat of his car, and he says, what's it going to be? And I said, take me to prison, man. I know the players. I know the games. I don't know what they want out of me in here. And it looks like I'm going anyway, based on what I saw last night. And I saw tears. This was a grown-ass man. And I saw tears rolling down his cheeks in the mirror. And it hit me. I can't remember the last time anybody cried for me. I can remember lots of times people cried because of me. And it did something to me in that moment. And I know it was a moment of clarity, a moment of grace. And I shrunk in the back seat of this guy's car. And where I had grown to was this mock tough guy who lived in fear. I carried 2 guns and I robbed dope houses and the money men at the same time alone. And I was just fear driven is all that was. And it was all part of my survival. And here I am, Mr. Mock Tough Guy, sitting in the backseat of this lawyer's car. And I feel myself literally shriveling. And I start sobbing. And I've heard this before, but I didn't plan it. It just came out of my face. It's like, God, if you're out there, I don't know where you've been, and I need you. And it moved from here, this manipulative mindset that I have described to you that I've been living by in treatments and court systems, to here. And it was like, oh, help. I can't do this. And see, I've overdosed, been DOA multiple times. I've been toe tagged and wheeled off to the side. And I've had that after-death experience and all that stuff. And none of that changed. In this moment, I felt changed. It affected me and I felt changed. I said, I will do whatever it takes to not live this way anymore. And it wasn't here anymore. It was here. It was a deep voice that I had not experienced at that level, not even close. So here we go. I go back inside and I lived there for 6 months. And my attitude started to change. This James Cagney, arms crossed, tilted back in the chair in the back of the room, like, don't F with me. That was gone. It was gone. I started to, and this place was kind of rare in its day back in the 70s in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where they were filled with Hazelton, we're going to fix you and you're going to fix yourself kind of philosophies. These guys were out of the big book. Not only were they zero tolerance, you're going to do this thing and you're going to do it just like this. Now, your counselor has to go through some stuff that's mandated by the state, but you know what? This is what we're really doing. And I'm going, okay, I don't know, right? I don't know any different because I've been in treatment and I can do the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out shuffle with the best of them. And this is not what this was. So now here I am. I had this new attitude of acceptance. I got this thing. It's not going away. I can't fix myself. They're willing to help. And I'm all in. Now, I said I was all in, but was I? Nah. I still had this little bits and pieces of denial, belligerent denial, and little pieces of, you know what? I think I can do this a little bit better. I was sneaky for a long time. For the first year of my sobriety, I was still stealing stuff, you know? It wasn't nailed down and you weren't looking, it was mine, you know? And I just thought that was the way it was. And that started to change. I start working the steps. And right away, they started saying, you know, we're going to work these steps. We're going to do all the mechanics of these steps. But while we're doing that, I want you to read pages 84 through 88 every night in your rack and every morning when it says on awakening, read that in the morning before we have groups. And I thought, well, this is kind of silly because this says, you know, steps 10 and 11. And I'm obviously on the cusp of 1 to 2. And they said, we don't care what you think. You're just going to do what we say. Again, I just, okay. So I was told what to do. I believed I had surrendered and I was doing what I was told. And yet, when I got out of that place, I chased after the job, the car, the toys, and the girl. And my recovery went to the wayside. Whilst I was still complying with my PO, I would occasionally go to meetings and grace you with my presence. I would yearly go to meetings and grace you with my presence while I accepted your token. And as time went on, I would show up to get my 5-year chip in my Mercedes. Wow, I have arrived. I'm sober. God damn it. Sorry, I'm trying not to swear. I'm sorry. Anyway, this I get to that place that many people I know have gotten to, and I start coming unglued. Joe and Charlie tapes come to the rescue. A friend of mine said, you know what? I know you're too busy to go to meetings like with the rest of us, but what? And he gave me this briefcase with cassettes in it. And he said, whilst you're driving back and forth to work and doing all your important stuff, why don't you listen to these? Okay. So I do. I listen to them. And I start to see that there's a whole lot going on in this book and in these rooms that I'm not on board with. I start becoming on board with it. I start looking for meetings with big books and with people in it who are carrying books because that's what someone suggested. And I find them. In these places where I would have swore 2 weeks earlier, there's no big book in that place. Same place, different time, big books. What do you know? So I sought that fellowship because I craved it. But I didn't crave it as much as I craved importance and money and stature. I'm married, I got a job, I got a business, I'm making big money. And what I'm doing is I'm selling pirate cable TV boxes all over the country. I'm manufacturing them overseas. I'm importing them. They're coming in by the trainload. And I'm selling the crap out of them, making more money than I know what to do with. What the hell I need AA for, right? At 15 years sober, I'm sober. And I don't know how, grace of God runs deep. I get sued. Imagine that. The feds come in, they take all my stuff, they lock up all my money, and I'm in big trouble. And the head lawyer's in New York. What do? I know a bunch of thugs. I take a contract out on the lawyer's life because he ain't treating me right. I put a deposit down on the contract, 15 years sober, mind you. And I leave these guys who I gave the deposit to, and I walk outside and I start throwing up. I start dry heaving. My knees start to shake, and I literally fell down to my knees. I crumbled on the sidewalk. And I thought, I don't know what's going on. And I went to a safe place that I knew, which was a church courtyard. And I dropped to my knees and I said, God, I'm lost, man. I've seen evidence you're out there, but I'm disconnected and I need help. Help. And that help came from that same deep place that I described earlier. And what I want to tell you is that 15 years sobriety, I surrendered at a depth I've never seen or experienced before. And when I did that, I was transformed, changed. Attitude adjustment is about change. My attitude was changed. I didn't change it. You heard what I do. I ripped down the structure of everything around me on a regular basis. So this AA really could stand for attitude adjustment, because that's what it relates to, as a spiritual makeover for a guy like me. So thankfully, when I couldn't do that, I want to get this out there before I forget. I called off the thing. I told the guys, keep the deposit, the deal's off, because I was supposed to deliver them the jacket that I had compiled with all the information, where the guy slept, what he did, what he ate, all that stuff, which I had. I was going to give it to him. I couldn't do it. I destroyed that, told him to keep the money. And that caused a much deeper deal in my life. I started to be involved and committed. And I had a therapist one time who told me to look up the difference in those two words. There's a big difference, because he said, I hear you saying you're involved in AA. Are you committed to recovery? And I had to admit that I wasn't. Now, I will admit to you that since that day, that's a long time ago now, I was 15 years sober, and I resurrendered, and I did everything that I could do to seek to improve this conscious contact of a God that I still don't understand. And that's the only thing that has given me grace. It's the only thing that's the reason I'm still here today, is a power that I don't know what it is, but I do believe that this power is there for me, because that was my big second step stumbling block. Okay, there's a power out there, but I don't think it's going to be there for a guy like me, right? I crapped in his Wheaties one too many times. I'm hiding out, and that's the way that I grew up in early AA. So what I wanted to say before I close out here is, every now and then, still, when it comes to spiritual growth, it seems like I still have one foot on the brake. It seems like I can understand the experience. I can understand the life-changing events that happen when I tie my wagon to God's. And yet, I want to run the show sometimes. I want to do it my way. And I'm really grateful that I surround myself with a bunch of people where I rat on myself to my friends. And we do this on a regular basis. And I often find myself, I see some character defect that I've identified that has risen to the top of the crud. And now I don't beat myself up anymore. I just laugh and I go, isn't that interesting how this is showing up today? Because I spent a whole half of my lifetime beating myself up. Today, I don't do that. I just don't do that. Maybe it's because I'm old in sobriety. Maybe it's because I'm getting older in age. It's like, it's not that important. And that's kind of like, I work with a lot of younger guys and they seek approval. And they go, don't you still seek approval? And I go, I love approval, but no, I don't seek it anymore. I don't. What comes out of my head is I don't care, but that's wrong. I do care. It just doesn't have the weight anymore. And that's one of the gifts that this new attitude has given me. A new attitude indeed has been given to me and countless others. My attitudes about God, life, love, recovery, and you have all changed. They've all changed, been changed. Today, I indeed have a deep felt attitude of gratitude. I have been given a life that's beyond any of my wildest dreams. When I first came in, I saw a therapist and I said, I don't know what love is. Today, I will tell you, I know what love is. And I love you all and thank you for being here. Thank you for holding the door open for me and countless others. Thank you.